Welcome to the Old Souls and Seekers podcast, a podcast that transcends the typical personal development journey. You're not new to this. You've read the books, attended the seminars, and perhaps even tried various coaching programs, yet something still feels amiss. Ilan and Guy have over 2 decades of relentless searching and $1 million invested in their personal growth quest. Here's the revelation. You're not missing anything. You're not even behind. You might have just been searching in the wrong places. In each episode, we'll uncover the most effective, straightforward practices that have profoundly impacted our lives and the tens of thousands of our clients from all over the world. This is about real, sustainable results for those dedicated to their personal and spiritual growth. So get ready to explore and enjoy the show.
Hi, everybody. Feel free to say hello in the chat box. Nice to be seen. Nice to be back. I had a really super challenging week last week. I got some septoplasty, which is like a realignment of my my septum in my nose, and the recovery from that is not so pleasant. Spent the whole week with like splints up there. I'll spare you the details, but suffice it to say, a lot of inflammation, and you just can't breathe for like a week straight. So it's kind of emotionally, mentally, physically exhausting. But the splints came out yesterday, and I'm feeling so much better. Definitely still some recovery to do, but all in all, back in action. I see a bunch of you guys popping in here, so as you're getting in, feel free to also say hi, especially if you're new and in the community. We'd love to especially welcome you here, all our podcast listeners, and anybody else who enjoys these conversations and the work that Ilan and I bring through into the world. Thank you guys for your love, and yeah, I'm definitely feeling better, and it's absolutely worth the rigor of the last week to get that work done. I think I hear you now. All right. Well, so why don't we talk about that? You know, like it's interesting. I was just talking to Wolf. He's got so many physical challenges right now. Our family, there's 3 people going through really intense stuff right now, like immediate family, me included. So something must be in the air, so to speak.
Could be.
I'm curious. Yeah, you know, like if we go beyond the physicality, obviously it's so funny, right? When physical's hurting, all you want is to be better. You realize you take it for granted. You're very appreciative of it. Then you get it back. You forget that it ever happened because when things are just humming along, you know, that's how we do it, right? You forget to hold the appreciation. And
it's kind of the same thing with everything, whether it's like money, body, you know, relationship. It's like when things are working, you're not paying attention.
So how does one hold that level of engagement and attunement with such an important area of life, so that we don't forget? Not to say that if you hold gratitude all the time, your body's going to be in perfect shape. You know, like I went through a really challenging experience last week, but I really mean but, I chose it. You know, like I've had a few family members recently who've had really challenging things, but they didn't choose it, and that's kind of a different mind space. But I still had 2 days in there and part of it was just being on the medicines that they give you that are just wreck your alignment and stuff like that. And I was like, I spent Wednesday and Thursday looking at my children, and like it was like I was not looking at my children. It was a very strange experience, almost like through a hollow dream or something like that. And I've never had general anesthesia before. I'm sure that was part of it. And then they, you know, some narcos and stuff like that. And then there's just like the tension and inflammation in the body, and the tiredness and the not breathing. And it was a lot of different things. But the whole time I was like, you know, and I chose it. So it's like, it felt a little bit like an ayahuasca experience.
Yeah,
to some degree.
It always does.
I'm always very grateful for all the challenging moments I've had in ayahuasca, because I know that I've been time tested and spiritually approved for difficulties in my life. And I always think, okay, I'm like, if I was in a medicine journey right now, and this was what was going on, how would I be with it? And
Yeah.
that's always been a really great way for me to like kind of find my center.
Yeah, for sure. You know what's always interesting, especially for me with body, what I notice, and I'm going to thank the YouTube algorithm for this as well. It's incredible when you start to when you have something that's like chronically there, right? It's not like something that leaves in 2-3 days, but it's like it's lasting. The amount of information that I find about how to move the body, and like especially with the back stuff, with the knee I kind of already know, like I'm just going through the motions, it just takes time. But this thing has really been interesting one. And so like I've learned all these incredible new stretches and like what's happening with the neck and how to like the stuff that I just never knew about my body because of this thing. Like if that was not here, I wouldn't have been this interested and I would have been this curious. So, I mean, just through the ages of like, you know, whether it was my knee or shoulder back in the day, like that led me into I think it was my knee, peptides, and like learning the whole world of peptides happened because of that. Knees over toes guy and like those kind of exercises all happened because of my knee stuff. So it's like, you know, when I hurt my shoulder, like different stretches and how to warm up. And it's really interesting. It's like, unless we're put in the situations that are causing us ongoing stress or discomfort, we don't really pay attention. Like it's very rare that you pay attention to the things that are just working in your life. So yeah, in that respect, I always have like a background layer of gratitude. I think the way that I different now, it's like I can be with the upset, the disappointment, the frustration, and not have it destroy my day. And I think that's the part that I'm so proud of. It's like, oh, I can just notice that there is disappointment and frustration and upset in my system. Like, and it gets to be there. Like, it's justified to be there. You know, like the body doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel great. Like these things that I want to do and love to do, I'm not. But whereas before, that would have just train wrecked me. Like when I remember the last time I couldn't play tennis for whatever it was, like 2-3 months while I was rehabilitating my knee. I was upset, like really fucking miserable and upset. And I was mad, like I was edgy and mad. And now I'm like, it's kind of like you said with Aya, I'm so used to the flows. And I'm so like, I always think back to the times that I was hurt. And it's like, okay, so I didn't play tennis for 3 months, or I was hurt for 3 months. Like in the grand fucking scheme of things, 3 months it's less than a blink of an eye. But when you're in those 3 months, it's like it never ends. But the truth is, I look at everything that's ever happened. Nothing has lasted forever. Like the last thing before was my shoulder. And I remember, because I sleep on my side, I couldn't sleep on my side. So every time I put out my arm, you know, it was like a reminder, like, oh, you're hurt. And then I had to like figure this out. And so the other day I'm like sleeping and I'm just kind of chuckling to myself. I'm like, oh, look at you. Like nothing's there. Like I don't feel anything. Like even if I search, like I don't feel anything. And I'm like, that whole event with the shoulder was what, maybe like a month, 2? Like, what are you even thinking about? But in the moment, you're like,
Have you played with those invoking codes?
No.
Health codes?
Mm-mm.
Just like sit meditation and like through the field, like invoke health codes, invoke, you know, financial codes, whatever it might be. I always get like a bit of I find like an uptick in energy when I do that, like something comes. It felt really good. I sat in a jungle on like the 3rd day doing a lot of that, like money codes and stuff like that. And it kind of prompted something in my system to continue that practice. I mean, I think that's it's valuable. And again, there's a reason for that. And you know, like you're also in a situation where you can play year round, where you used to play seasonally. So it's like, right, like you used to take that time off. And I think you know, tennis is a hard sport on the body. I have good news for you. I've been kind of on a longevity kick again, just like consuming a lot of content and reading studies and this, that, the other, and racket sports is one of the most
10 years to your life.
It adds a lot to your life. Ironically, I would have thought tennis is towards the top, but ping pong.
Yeah.
Because of the quick response, quick think, it fires those receptors. And I was like, oh yeah, Mandy's like those Ferdmans are killing it.
Yeah. What's interesting is that study also cited, because they were trying to figure out like why paddle sports in general. And what one of the things was, there was also community and interaction in those sports. So it's like a lot of like interconnected relational things, right? So like most paddle sports it's a very hangout-ish sport. Most people don't play singles like me. Most people play doubles. So automatically, there's 3 other people you're interacting with. I also think tennis specifically, you're like, or pickleball, but like you get vitamin D, you're out in the sun, you're moving the body. It's very mental and physical at the same time. So it's like you're working both aspects.
Sure.
I mean, it's wild. Like the guy that I play with regularly, he's 61 years old, right? So he's like 18 years my senior, and I'm playing with him. And I'm like, dude, that's like almost me playing dad competitively. Like we play competitively. Like I don't beat him all the time. So, and we were joking about like how we get to do this for the next God knows how many years and keep playing with each other, this and that. I was like, dude, my goal in life is to ski and be able to play tennis at 100 years old. That's like my hope and dream and goal. And truth is, in the next 10 years, the amount of things that we are going to be able to do for our bodies, as far as like rejuvenating tendons, replacing cartilage, like all these things that have kind of stopped people from being able to do stuff for a long, long time, it's all going bye-bye. Like you're going to have a whole new inner body in the next, 15, 20 years. So, I say it like as this thing that I'm playing for, and I'm serious. Like I really do think that that's a possibility.
Yeah. And right now, in terms of, since you're dealing with more, over injuries, are you feeling like the cold plunge? Do you actually really feel a difference in terms of recovery time when you cycle?
So here's the irony.
When you're just doing it regularly, I'm sure I feel the benefit, but when I've never had something like really chronic to deal with in that situation.
So here's the irony. Up until this injury, like I got the cold plunge my birthday last year. Mm-hmm. So up until that time, my body was actually like really, really great. I think what happened with my knee specifically is it's difficult to do legs consistently and play tennis.
Yeah.
Because it's like then your legs are just really tired when you play tennis. It's almost like when I go to play tennis, I'm like, why am I even bothering? Like I can't really move. Mm-hmm. So I kind of moved away from doing like the knees over toes stuff and focused that. And I think that's what actually created the hurt.
Yeah.
I will say though that what I feel in general with injuries and now with that, it's like, for example, I came in today and I can't say that I was limping, but I was like, it was sore. Like when I came in from tennis today, it was definitely sore. I sat in the sauna and the cold plunge. I did 3 cold plunges and 2 saunas. And like my knee now feels fine. Like it's weird because it feels strong. Like I can do all the movements. I can do like single leg squats. I can do all this stuff. But for whatever reason, those like little micro movements, I think on a tennis court, especially to my right-hand side and moving up,
that makes me think that potentially something more neurological, actually, that you might need like a quick scan. Counter strain, they're moving towards spinal scans. Like the technology's grown even more. Like last time I went in there, he did a completely different treatment on me. They're doing a lot of stuff with the brain now, suddenly. So, I mean,
by the way, now that you're speaking about it, because the girl that I found here is terrible. Like she's not I don't think she actually knows what she's doing. Mm-hmm. I know it's a shot in the freaking dark, but is there any way that I can get in with Kyle while there?
I'll see what I can do. Yeah. If not Kyle, he has the second guy, and he's pretty good too.
Whatever. Someone like over there during that time. That would be amazing.
Also, you're here, you'll rest. We'll do like late active days. So
yeah. Though that would be so great. Because like I actually thought the other day, I was like the one thing that I really, really miss in my life is my practitioner.
Yeah.
Because things like this, I would have gone when it first started, and it would have been done. Like I wouldn't even have to think about it anymore. It's like
everybody needs a somatic healer in their lives, like one really good somatic healer in their lives.
Oh my God!
Almost everyone I know that has one and regularly goes or semi-regularly goes, like has seen wild benefits. I mean, I'm a little flummoxed about that because you would think our body would have like a self-correcting mechanism, which it does when it's put into the right environment. But I don't know whether we're living in an environment that's throwing our bodies so far out, or it's the chemicals around us that's not letting us, or it's just the quote unquote, they're not natural, but natural stresses of life that we're dealing with that don't allow for the body to kind of find that center and rejuvenate itself at the level that it probably could. I do agree that, we're going to see medical and scientific breakthroughs over the next 10 years that are going to boggle the minds and be pulled out of science fiction books for sure.
I mean, I'll tell you, like, even in every time, right, there's like new things that I'm learning. I think there's a couple things. One is I think we sit way too much, way too much. Mm-hmm. The other thing is with phones, and this is kind of what I recognized with this. So this, like what I have here, that pull is like a rhomboid, meaning that's like where the muscle meets the scapula. It's basically like pulled in, right? It's like pulling in, and now it's tweaking on a nerve. But a lot of the research that I found is like when you're like this, looking at your phone, that's pulling on all of this,
right? Same thing with the laptop when you're looking down.
That's right. Laptop, looking down, or even in bed. Like if you're in bed, but you're like raised on a couple of pillows, and a lot of people go to bed like, they're like this. So you're kind of in this position. You think you're relaxing, but you're actually really stressing and straining this neck portion, which, even like my couch, ironically enough, where I sit, like if we're watching a show or something, it's also one of these couches where you're kind of like, you're not like sitting upright, you're kind of like arched. So it's super comfortable, but I'm realizing like all of that, the neck actually needs to be almost like, he was saying like it's better to read or be on your phone, especially on your bed, like on your side, on a pillow. So your head is like rested and your neck is long, because every time we do this forward, you're actually hurting this aspect. So I just realized, I'm like, wow, because this is, I mean, I know you too, like our parts here are always stressed. But yeah, like little things like that, like stretches that I never played with before, things like that, which I know in the long run, this is what's always interesting. It's like, I get this injury, I learn and learn and learn. I figure out all these new things, like how to move the body, how to open, all these things. And then these things create longevity down the road. But if it wasn't for the thing that happened, I wouldn't have gone down that path to learn and grow and research and So, on the one hand, I'm always, to me, I said this to Dad the other day, I'm like, I feel like the universe is constantly putting things on our path to help us learn lessons for wherever it is that we're going, right? It's almost like you don't know where you're going, but your soul and whatever constructing kind of knows where you're going. And it's like, hey, listen, when you're going to get there, you're going to need X, Y, and Z training. So we're going to give you X, Y, and Z training now so that when you get there, you know what to do. Like it will already be there, because by the time you get there, if you don't have this, it's going to be way, way worse. And so whether it's, financial crisis, health crisis, relationship crisis, etc., it's like, okay, so maybe you're transitioning from this job to another job, or from this relationship to another relationship, whatever it is. But like, if you don't want to keep creating the same patterns and the same upsets or ruptures or whatever, it's like, guess what? You need new tools. And so that's why even for me, you know, this whole conversation got started with me pointing to disappointment, just like feeling disappointment and upset and, you know, sadness. Like when I think how automatic that is for me today,
Yeah.
when I can allow this wave of disappointment, frustration, sadness, and I'm not trying to do all the ninja mindset things that I knew for years. Create a different story, paint a new future, blah, blah, like all that stuff. I don't do any of it anymore. It's simply like, I had a mini this morning and it was just simply like sit and bring up all of it. Like witness, watch, listen, get curious about all of it. And so all these parts get their time in the day. And to me, the fact that this is on autopilot right now is, I look back at it and I'm like, wow, what a gift. If I could bestow on anyone, like I have a birthday, like if my birthday wish was that everyone on the planet could have the ability to be witness to whatever is arising in their life. You know, like Stacy was pointing here that her dad's going away tomorrow for 10 days. What can I do to take my mind off the fact that I will be alone at home for that time? So notice it's like where the mind, and Stacey, I'm just going to use this as an example. It's like where the mind goes is, I need to get out of this situation. How do I fix this? How do I overcome this? How do I make this go away? Where everything that I'm talking about is like, no, don't go away from that. Your dad leaving and you now feeling alone is what the universe is bringing here to highlight for you, to listen to and grow from, because alone is something that has been impacting you for a long, long time. And if you don't gain new abilities to simply be with alone as a song, like this is the song that's playing right now, and the song is sad because it has to do with being alone. But you know the song is not going to play forever, right? Like when you're listening to a soundtrack or you're watching a movie, right? It's sad or it's intense or whatever it is, but it's like for this sliver of time. Imagine if every movie that you watched that had to do with alone or sad or whatever, you're like, I got to skip this scene. Or you're reading books, they're like, no, I don't like this chapter. It's too sad. Like you miss the art because life is the breath of all of it. And so to me, the ability to sit with alone, sit with fear, sit with confusion, and not get warped into it, but just be like, wow, look at the sensation that's arising. It's incredible. Like it's incredible to be able to do that.
Yeah. I think if we as a society had the ability to step back and say and really understand, look at, prove to ourselves that the moment we tangle with something, just how much bigger we make it, how much worse we make it, how sticky we make it. Yeah, it's something last week, you know, it's like 7 days of having splints up your nose and not being able to breathe. Like, again, there are like moments in life where you get to have an experience that you've never had before, like not breathing out of your nose for 7 days. Like, you know, you don't know what that really does to your mental state, emotional state, what have you. Not talking for 10 days, not eating for 10 days, right? Like these things, like until you've done it, you really don't know. And they're all like their own kind of disciplines, but it was the same thing. It was discomfort, but not suffering. Kind of knowing, hey, this is the moment. Couldn't meditate for shit. Like just the drugs just put me out. So it was like I couldn't even fall back on the things I really would normally do. I had no energy for even minis. Like, you know, it's like I don't want to be in a computer. I don't want to be seen. Like you just want to be like in a dark hole, like somewhere, right? But I was like, okay. I thought about it because I had done some of that cerebral feedback training, and that has been wildly beneficial. And I heard that general anesthesia could really throw that into, like, it could fuck it up pretty badly.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I actually had a friend who did that work and then had the surgery right after, and she said it, like, ruined the work basically for her. So I was also had that kind of playing in the back of my mind. But, and as I was with stuff yesterday, I was like, nope, I feel great. Like just like I really love this. I'm with you. I wish I could explain at what point I became like a piece of Teflon, where things just stopped sticking, and the concern went away. But honestly, I would say it's rather recent. Like I mean, 6 to 8 months kind of situation, and it's been expanding and growing, and I'm in the same place. I'm like, am I meditating all the time? It just feels like I'm kind of meditating all the time. Um, So, yeah, this feels really good. Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about the neck, I have it on my left side. I learned a long time ago not to look down on my devices, especially when you're sitting at a desktop or a laptop. It just wrecks the neck. They actually call it tech neck, and tech neck over a period of time will actually grow this area, make you look like a fat frog as well. It will. Like look at some younger kids, you'll see their jowls get bigger because they're like this. They're so hunched over. The spine starts curving. I mean, it's not pretty. And again, all the more reason to have somatic work. I mean, simple things that all of us could do, all of us literally could do, just to help you yourself out, is hanging from a pull-up bar, like a minute a day, do wonders for you, and squatting on a regular basis for 3 to 5 minutes a day. Like I squat when I brush my teeth every morning. I do little knee exercises every morning but just because I'm doing stuff, like I have my kids around, so I'm not like, all right, well, daddy's gonna go do a thing. I just like kind of work it into the things I'm doing, and that helps me maintain quite a bit, I would say, because I think we all think we need to put this like grand amount of time aside. I think I mentioned this before a few weeks ago on here on the podcast and then on these calls. I really have taken on this thing of like micro commitments to myself. It's like, okay, I hadn't made it to the gym since we moved into our new house, in the apartment building we had before. We had a gym downstairs, and here in my house, I have like a squat bar, I have a pull-up bar, like things that honestly can keep you in great shape for a long time. You don't need to do that much for working out. You just need to be consistent and focus on big muscle groups, in my opinion. But I was like, okay, so I'm not making it to the gym. I'm like, I've broken this commitment now for 6 months. I haven't done that since I was 14 years old. Like I've always worked out. And again, not to say I'm not working out, but I was like, okay, so how do I make this work with where I'm at today instead of making myself wrong for not making it to the gym? And I was like, well, what can I do? And I'm like, well, I could usually sneak away for like 5 or 10 minutes. So I started doing multiple 5 to 10 minute workouts at home. And if you're just if you're like, okay, I'm gonna do a 5 minute workout. Do you know how hard you can go for 5 minutes?
That's it.
You can go balls to the wall until you're on the ground and you can't breathe. So I just make sure, because I know that there is extraordinary. Again, I read these studies and I'm like, okay, so how do I just get that one little piece into my day? Yeah, Ud was saying she dances. I was dancing with my little boy this morning. Same thing. I'm dancing. It's movement. I enjoy it. He's laughing. I'm laughing. We're connecting. I'm getting something in. I'm moving my body in irregular ways. So I love that, and I absolutely think dance, any sort of movement, should be the primary focus. It's like, how can I move throughout the day? And that's it, and ironically, like my legs look like they're in the best shape I've probably been in my entire life, just from doing 5 minutes here, 5 minutes here. And I know that you want to reach to a point where you're breathing hard. Like that, you want to do that a few times a week for sure. And like that, it helps the body regulate. It helps the body remove toxins. There's just so much benefit to doing those things. And of course, weight and aggressive loading and all these kind of different things. Like people make it so complicated. Like I need legit reasons to not do stuff. I'm like, just work it into your day the best that you can. Whatever you can, however you can. But if you every little commitment you make to yourself drives the ship in that direction. It starts building momentum. And then you find, all the reasons I came up with not to do this were ridiculous. And just that momentum starts going, well, what else can I do? How else can I do this? How else can I implement this into my day? And it starts getting that creativity going. But if you're always in that state of procrastination, thinking it has to be perfect before you get it going, you just never start. And years go by like that. And before you know it, you put on 40 pounds and you're lugging around, and instead of breathing hard because you worked out, you're breathing hard because you can't walk up the stairs.
Yep.
Like, those are things I'm certainly not committed to. And, obviously want to set the standard, and a great example for my kids. It's like this stuff really matters. And in a world where we have so much sedation at every level, I mean, it's just more important than ever to focus on these things.
Are you feeling inspired by these podcasts? Is this approach striking a chord with you? Imagine taking this journey even further with personal coaching from Guy and I, right from your own home on Zoom. Join us at our next live event. They happen quarterly. It's an accessible, cost-effective way to dive deep into these transformative practices, not just theoretically, but experientially. Attendees often share that they've experienced unprecedented levels of peace, support, forgiveness, and awareness. Remember, healing isn't just a mental exercise. It must be felt and released through the body. So here's a special gift just for you, our valued listener. Visit intuitivemind.live and use the coupon code OLDSOUL to receive 25% off your ticket. The Intuitive Mind event is unlike any other. So impactful that many participants return multiple times, some as many as 10, 12, even 15 times. Plus, once you register, we'll immediately send you a recording of a previous event so that you can start practicing right away. Don't miss this opportunity. Go to intuitivemind.live, secure your spot for our next live event using the coupon code OLDSOUL, and start your transformative journey today. Now, back to the show. Yeah, for sure. And it becomes a lot harder, like you let it slide and then it becomes a lot harder. I don't know, this was even before personal development or anything. I remember I was in college and I looked at my wardrobe and I saw what certain people and this is no judgment on anybody. This is just the game that I played. But I just saw that people would get to college and just blow up because they would just let it all go. They would stop exercising. They would eat shitty. They would start drinking, smoking pot and all the munchies and blah, 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 blah. And then it's new wardrobe for their new size and then new wardrobe for their new size. And I remember in my head, I was like, Ilan, this is your wardrobe. If at any point you can't fit into this, then you stop doing what you were doing to make sure that you stay fitting into this. And lo and behold, same jeans, same size, same belt, same shirts, literally everything's been the same. And I kind of made this I didn't even recognize it at the time, but I'm looking back, I'm I made a game with myself. And the game was this is your margin. You can be between here and here, but that's it. And so, again, life, and I watched this, I was telling the team earlier, I watched a movie called The Whale over the weekend, which is, if you ever want to, I don't know how many of you guys have seen it. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend the movie. It is just the right amount of disturbing and upsetting and moving and all of it. The thing that I was very present to as I was watching it, though, because this man has a food addiction, and the food addiction is a coping mechanism, right? Like we all have coping mechanisms, and this one is just the way they portray it. It's so in your face, and it's so visceral and just kind of really, really thrown in your face to the point where I almost had to stop the movie 20 minutes in because I looked at Fanny and I was like, babe, I don't know that I can watch this. I don't know that I could watch someone do this amount of self-harm to themselves. It was painful. And as I'm watching, I'm realizing we all have this. They just focused on the coping mechanism of food, but we all have this incessant coping mechanism that we use to hurt ourselves or sabotage ourselves. And when I started to watch it from that lens, I was again, I was just left with so much gratitude for what it is that we have learned and now get to teach others so that people don't fall into these places. So that when someone is dealing with, whether it's, grief or loss or sadness or anger or whatever, that they don't have to go to the coping mechanisms that have been programmed in them since the time that they were really, really small, whether it's, smoking cigarettes or taking pills or drugs or eating candy or unhealthy food or whatever it is. Just because it temporarily works, I'm telling you, does not mean that it's the way. it's a way that you've habituated that gives you a little bit of reprieve. This is the question that I would have. If after you've given yourself the Band-Aid and the reprieve from whatever your coping mechanism is, if afterwards you feel shame, guilt, sadness, or anger at yourself, like any of those things, then chances are that what you're using as a coping mechanism is not healthy for you. Because the thing that comes after the reprieve, that feeling of shame or upset or guilt or whatever it might be, is actually part of the cycle. Like it actually spins you continuously in that loop, and it brings your energetic level to the lowest possible vibration, right? Like shame, guilt is the lowest vibrational path. So just something to kind of think about, like tuning into what is your coping mechanism, and then noticing like, oh, after the coping mechanism, an hour later, a day later, whatever it is, like if I'm feeling those things about it, it's not your avenue. Like you really, really want to start looking for something new. And
it requires support. It just requires support. Like I don't know how anybody can break out of a cycle, especially the really long ones that you've been in 20, 30, 40 years, or something that you picked up as a kid. Obviously, since you brought up the whale, I haven't seen the movie, but I know enough about it to know the texture of what's being talked about there. I mean, like I'll go to, like Legoland here in California with my kids, and like just the amount of like overweight children right now is like it's so painful to watch. I'm like, it's such a hard life, and I'm like, there's like, I don't know what it would take to have the education. It's just such a, I would want to become this like extremely healthy city, and it's a.
Bro, you're breaking up pretty bad.
They just oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
How's it now? Yeah.
Now it's
I was gonna say, like, it was like during COVID. I was like, okay, they were gonna say like during COVID, it was like, you don't have to take the vaccine, but we're gonna make your life very difficult if you don't. So they were subsidizing, and as a society, at some point, either we choose or not, that we're going to start subsidizing right action. I'm all for free markets and stuff like that. It makes sense, but at some point, we also have to say free market is fucking killing people left and right and center. And if we don't take the time, sugar, one that doesn't have sugar, like the one that has less ingredients, costs twice as much, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Right. Like something is being incentivized backwards. And we could all, to some degree understand that there are extremely powerful, lucrative businesses and corporations that are driving these ships. But at the same time, all of us are yelling and screaming and this and that at the end of the day. And the only things that these corporations will ever understand is you voting with your money. And so when you back anything with your money, with your action, that's what drives that. If that thing wasn't acquired anymore, it would lose all sense and value to the company. It doesn't matter how they market it or brand it. And so like we can all wait for those moments to happen, or we can start taking the personal responsibility that's really required here. And you cannot convince me that a generation later, when you have 75% obesity in the most privileged country in the world, that they're doing things the right way over here. That's insanity. Absolute fucking insanity.
Yeah. I was actually at my kids' Hebrew school graduation, and I also noticed kind of what you were saying, where it's like obesity in kids. It's just, especially after having watched that movie and seeing how much pain this man went through, and to know that we're doing this for kids. Like, my kids are fairly active, but in comparison to how you and I were active, it's like night and day. I mean, night and day. We used to come home and it was right away, rollerblade to our friend's house, rollerblade to the park, roller hockey outside of someone's house that we rollerbladed to, which was probably like a mile plus away. go play basketball, go play, touch football, whatever. Like we never were home before dinner. Like that didn't even occur. It was like, come home, go out, come home, go out. And now it's like, come home, get on a device, go on video games, this and that. So unless the kid is actively playing a year-round sport where there's constantly practices, this and that, like that's their life. They come home and they just go from one device to another device. Now it's like homework on a computer to phone to numb their mind to video games to this. And it's like, so the food situation is terrible. Then the activity situation has gone way, way lower, like than we used to. I mean, listen, like you and I ate shitty, but lo and behold, like truth is we probably burned thousands of calories every single day by like just the virtue of what we did, right? Just normal activities. I'm
all for them making devices illegal minimum until 16 years of age. I just don't think that anybody below that level of developmental age should be using that. And if they want to have phones for parents to feel safe, then there should be good old fashioned flip phones that make phone calls, and like that's that. Like it should just be regulated. If adults can't handle it, children can't handle it.
It's terrible.
Because adults can't handle it.
It'll be like I'll drive Shia and his friends to bar and bat mitzvahs, right? And so there's, let's say four kids. They're friends. Like these are 4 kids who are friends, okay? No conversation. None. Zero. It's literally every single one of them on their own phone. And then when someone sees something funny on their phone, they like show it to the other ones, and then they're like watching that thing. But there's zero conversation had. It's like they don't even know how to communicate anymore.
Yeah, it's crazy. Hey,
are we? Well, so is this the official? I know I'm turning 43 this year, but is this official? Like now we're like the old people, like where the music's too loud and the kids are too lazy. And
I just watched that Billy Crystal scene like a week ago to remind me of what he says. Yeah, and it's like I don't know if you guys remember the movie City Slickers, but there's a scene where he goes to his son's school and he like talks about his job, and then he starts talking about all this stuff like about 30s and 40s and music, and then he's like by the 60s, he's like the music is still loud, but you can't hear anything. So it doesn't matter anymore. It's great. It was really funny. Yeah, I mean, we are, like we are and we are, right? There's the generational gap, without a doubt. And those gaps have gotten significantly bigger. I barely, the funny part is I think for a 20-year-old to even talk to a 15-year-old today, the gap is massive. Yeah. Like the changes in society, the changes in technology, and I would only expect that to expedite. So it's like we used to, these generational gaps used to be like a 40-year gap. They're probably down to like 10 or 15 years now, but having said that, though, it doesn't mean that we can't relate to people. It doesn't mean that these things won't be cherished. And maybe if anything, they'll teach people to cherish them more, right? Like we took them for granted. Like, I mean, how many things do you think that we did in our time that the generation before never did? And we grew up fine. Or 100 years before that, they couldn't have even imagined those things, and we grew up fine, right? It's like whatever your version of the world is, it's not the right version of the world anyway.
Yeah.
Certainly, I don't want to see a world that's falling in, melting into the ground with obesity and health problems and children who are going to have heart attacks, which I'm sure we're going to see. But in response to 15-year-olds dropping dead all over the planet from heart attacks, I'm sure at some point parents are going to start advocating to have a better society, right? Like. So it's like, to me, these things are only a matter of time. And it's also like, with when we grew up, people threw garbage on the highways. Remember that? If everyone just opened their window, whatever you had in the car, just huck that out the fucking window. No thought in the world as to the damage that would cause, what that was doing to the environment, what that did to animals. But like, as the awareness grew, the tide changes, the actions begin to change also. Like, it's only a matter of time before that happens to economies. It's only a matter of time before that happens to politics. It's only a matter of time. Like, that's why all this pressure, and everyone gets so upset. I'm like, pressure is what busts pipes. That's what happens. You just create so much pressure. Eventually, like, whatever's containing that amount of pressure can only hold so much. And that changes. And we are in wildly interesting times, seemingly going through similar historical changes again for whatever reason. Like I say, we haven't learned anything, but I don't believe that, because the microcosm in our lives, what spirituality teaches you is you revisit things over and over and over again, but you revisit them from a different vantage point.
Right.
And if you know, so we're like, so yeah, maybe it looks like a little bit, pre 30s and 40s right now in the world, but like, okay, but we're not in a different place we're in a different place psychologically, energetically, emotionally than we were 80 years ago on this planet. And so it's going to be seen from a different lens. It is being seen from a different lens. And it's way too easy to get wrapped up in the comments and the noise of mass media and think that that's what's happening in the world. That's never what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
It's never what's happening in the world, ever. That's some person's opinion who formed that opinion based on the fact of, will this opinion make money for my news media agency? Because it's the only thing that keeps their job. That's what makes them feel safe and secure. They're probably not even doing it for malicious intents, but like that's what keeps the the show rolling on. And you can't say that like there hasn't been a mass change in media consumption or who people are listening to today. Like the Joe Rogans of the world and all these, like, it's really cool. I think in the last 3 to 4 years, what I've seen, especially online with short form media and long form media and stuff like that, is like how many of these men and women who basically established their own media companies, right? Just through the democratization of owning a channel today. You don't need a news media channel. You just need YouTube, grow a following.
Or a podcast,
Yeah, like Terrence Howard was just on Joe Rogan. I can't wait to listen to that podcast. I highly recommend listening to that. He's bringing forward a completely new way of thinking about mathematics and science. He's really throwing a big bomb out there. He's claiming that the fundamentals of mathematics is completely wrong, and he can prove it, which is really
the actor, right?
He's a certified genius.
But the actor.
Yeah, I'm talking about the actor. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Joe Rogan just platformed him. Again, I'm not saying I know that it's true. He also claims that he can remember his life inside the womb and can describe it very beautifully and very articulate. I haven't listened to the whole thing, but it's really, really amazing. But I've watched the content around him going through this. I love shit like that. I'm like, this is because like what he's saying is the world's not flat, basically. And then there's maybe 500 years of everyone yelling and screaming that this guy's a malicious idiot and no one should listen to him. And then 200 years from now, we're going to be like, oh, Terrence Howard was correct. And what he's saying is very logical. It makes a lot of sense. And you're like, wow, like if that's what's wrong about how we're looking at things, like he's basically saying that mathematics is at best an approximation and it doesn't have the precision that it's supposed to have because the fundamentals are wrong. Which would start explaining why we can't figure out how they built the pyramids to the precision that they did it, right? Stuff like that. It's like, clearly, they did something different than we did. So did they use different math? Did they use different technologies? Did they have different spiritual technologies? So the answer to all those is probably yes, right? So anyway, I think, again, like I'm never quite concerned about anything. And even in spiral dynamics, like we've clearly elevated from the red to the green. But it's like the distortion is always what comes first at every level.
Yeah.
And so we are like in the most distorted fucking green meme, abolishing the red meme type of scenario right now. I don't want to go into all the details about what spiral dynamics is. You guys can do your own research, but fascinating nonetheless. And I'm like, just makes sense. Just on the way to the next thing, just on the way to the next thing. So it's like, I think that, again, it always comes down to what we talk about. It's like, forget society. Forget obesity, forget all these problems, which are overwhelming when you start talking about them, drive a lot of emotion, a lot of stuff up here. It's like, what can you and the individual looking at that, sitting with whatever you got to sit with about what comes up for you when you're looking at that, and then see how that impacts your system and learn from that for yourself so that you don't have to go and make those same problems and mistakes in your life, because the whole can always teach the individual. And if we want to see the whole change, then it's an individual by individual process anyway. Unfortunately, this world changes, science changes, politics changes, one death at a time.
Yeah.
I actually think that's the role of, from a spiritual perspective, the role of wars and viruses and stuff like that. It's like a detox. It sounds terrible. I apologize if that sounds, I'm making it sound like lives don't matter. And I really don't mean to say that, because obviously from the human level that it's very challenging to watch these things. But I just mean, I think from the spiritual, when the souls are like, okay, it's time to refresh and to change all that, then these are our mechanisms that can be used on this planet to do that in a much more accelerated way. So
yeah, that's, I mean, we kind of are ending where we started, which is like, there's always a discomfort, there's always a pain that always inevitably leads to something greater. And even like, you're talking about a physical pain in body, right? It's like at some point we exit this body and we go back to where we came from, which is love, light, spaciousness. And that's all there is, right? So like, if you think about from a soul's perspective, even the physical discomfort or pain that someone might feel in their illness, whatever it might be, it's like we're also transitioning from that to liberation and to something bigger and greater. So it's to Guy's point, which I think is like a really, really good kind of bow on all of this. It's, how are you currently looking at and dealing with your life's situation and circumstances? And if instead of anger, you can choose joy, or instead of hate, you can choose love, or sadness, you can choose contentment. And I don't mean that from like a cerebral place, like, oh, I'm just going to be happy about this. No, I mean, like, can you just sit with the pain, the discomfort, the unease, whatever it is? Can you just be with it such that you're not judging it or trying to make it disappear or go away? And if you can do that at a micro level, meaning like in the moment to moment experience of your life, you're now becoming that transmission for everyone else. And so there's a trickle down effect, because now if you're at home with your wife, husband, or kids, right, they're actually learning from the way that you're operating. You don't even have to tell them, but they're just scanning and receiving that information from your nervous system. They're now taking that on, so that then when they go out and they do whatever it is that they do, right, they have this template. And now they're giving that to their friends, and so on and so forth. And eventually we're getting to this place where there's going to be enough of us on this planet doing this kind of work, bringing it to our families, friends, communities, etc. And this is how we shift the planet. It's not going to be by voting this person in versus that person. If you like live in this world where you think that one person, whether a dictator or a puppet head, actually controls and all the things that happen, like it's like my favorite thing to watch is everyone's like, oh, when so-and-so was president, none of this would happen. I was like, yes. And you are basing that off of what? Because you knew, and you can map that if 4 years from now, this other person's here, like these things are going to happen. Like the delusion of it is just so fucking asinine. None of that is true. And if you notice and catch yourself thinking that way, like that should be a red flag. Be like, oh, look at that delusional thinking. And it's fine that delusional thinking is there. But just notice that it's delusional thinking, and let delusional thinking do what delusional thinking does. You don't have to try to fight it or control it or convince it. You can't. That's just what it's going to do. But don't get hooked by it. Don't go spreading it. Don't go like, just find more peace internally and everything in your life. And the way you do that is you create safety. Peace is the byproduct of you creating safety in your system. No safety, no chance at peace. No safety, no chance at love. No safety, no chance at support. Like it always, we talk about this all the time. It always comes back to safety.
Yeah. That's what gives me more solace in this world than anything. I was out with Dad yesterday for like an hour and a half. We did a healing session. And I was like, Dad, I'm like, everybody on this planet is just looking for safety. And we all go about it in our crazy ways, no matter how it is that you do it, no matter how violent, no matter how intense, no matter how whatever. It's like everyone just wants to feel safe, and I'm like, and the mistake everybody's making is they're trying to acquire it instead of cultivate it.
Yep. I love that.
Those are such different things to do. So it's like you're acquiring means you're going to take some action to try to get a set of results that allows you to obtain safety. And it doesn't work that way. You can have any result you want in this world, and I implore you to do whatever the fuck you feel like you're supposed to be doing on this planet and get the results that you want. But you're not going to feel safer for it, or you'll have the delusionment that you're safe for a very short period of time, and then it'll get kicked up again, and you're going to be like, still not? And then you're going to go do the next, and you're going to do the next thing, and that lack of safety is going to source the next action again, and you're going to try to go get that big result, and then you're going to feel fine when you get it, and then it's going to go away again. It's like everything is temporal. We've all at some point gotten the car or the thing that we wanted. Like, how long does that really last? How long does that enjoyment really last before it's like the concern seeps back in? And so if that's what's going on, recognize it's safety, well-being, connection. These are cultivated things, just like physical well-being. It's like, it's not a 30-day diet that makes people healthy. It's a lifestyle. It's a cultivated lifestyle over a long period of time. Ilan and I were very fortunate. We saw our dad and our mom, like, at least go to the gym. In our youth, we ate all our, meals around a table with a family. Like, today, I look around, I'm like, whoa. I'm like, the difference between a family that does and a family that doesn't is so fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, thank God, for growing up in a house like that, which I totally took for granted. But like, now, as I have my own family, I just realize, like, these small little things are such a big deal in the grand scheme of things, right? And that's what we always got to recognize too about our own work. It's not about the big things. It's about these little micro experiences you're having inside that are so subtle. Like, when a thought happens, do you get hooked? Does it take you into a negative emotion? When that doesn't happen, like, that to me, like Ilan said, such a big win, allowing for experiences to move through the system instead of constantly trying to regulate and navigate and control what the system is doing. There's no peace there. There's no safety there. There's no well-being there. Like, you're just going to be running that hamster wheel forever. So, that's what our events are for. Next one's coming up on June 29th and 30th. I just dropped it in the box and put the offers. If you're listening to this on the podcast, intuitivemind.live. Put in coupon code LIVE25. It'll save you 25% off at checkout. Give you a nice little perk there. And if you really want to learn about safety and you want to learn about the practices to cultivate, like, how to actually cultivate that and not chase like a rabid monkey for the rest of your life, trying to get that, these are the practices that do that and will eventually lead you to this beautiful place in your life. And whatever that effort that you need to put forward or commitment to get you there, everybody's got to do it. Everyone's got to walk that path at some point in time. So it's like, you might as well get started now and see where you're at. And a few months from now, a few years from now, you'll be forever grateful that you took that path. Amen. We love you guys. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you here again next week. Okay.
Thank you, dear one, for choosing to share a bit of your day with us. We value you greatly. And as a way to give back and help you to deepen these practices, we want to invite you to join our incredible community on Facebook. You can do so easily by going to joinoldsouls.com and ask for an invite. This is our private community where old souls and seekers are able to grow and share their journey with others. We hold exclusive weekly live streams, we answer your personal questions, and offer valuable insights that we won't be able to share here on the podcast. So again, just head to joinoldsouls.com and grab your invite today. And as always, if you enjoy this podcast, please head to iTunes and leave us a review. It's the only way other people can find this show. So if it's making a difference in your life, please share the love. Until we meet again, have an amazing week, dear one.